Jack Smith is freaking out. He submitted a motion in Judge Cannon's courtroom saying Donald Trump needs to be gagged. And we're thinking to ourselves, wait a minute, what? This case has been going on for quite some time. Everyone else has tried to gag Trump basically immediately. Judge Chutkan gagged him. We had Engeron gag him. We had Merchan gag him. And all of a sudden, Jack's coming out and saying, we need him gagged too. Well, that's because Jack's cases are all failing and he needs a little red herring, a little shiny object to dangle everybody's attention over here to give the media something to talk about, which is what they're doing. We've got Andy McCabe, corrupt ex-FBI agent, who's going to come in and say, Trump is making this into a dangerous situation. What are we talking about? Well, Trump is commenting on the warrant and the procedures on executing the warrant when they went and raided his residence at Mar-a-Lago and took pictures unnecessarily and without legal cause or justification of Melania's bedroom and Barron's bedroom because they were trying to humiliate him or due diligence for some other entity. Maybe the CIA has plans. Don't know. But they're there. And in that execution of that search warrant, there was a section on the use of force and lethal force in particular. And a bunch of the normal figures on the left and in the mainstream deep state institutional defenders are constantly saying, it's just a form. Nobody changed it. Nobody even looked at it. Okay, morons. This is not a regular case. This is not some crackhead like Hunter Biden that you didn't raid. This is the president who has, in my opinion, absolute legal authority to have those documents. And don't need to get into the legal arguments there about the opinion clause that belongs to the president. But Trump posts a bunch of stuff and now they're freaked out. So he has to be shut up immediately. Merrick Garland is out there. This is dangerous rhetoric. If he continues to be able to speak about how we did our job and executed the search warrant, Trump needs to be silent. So we'll look at the exhibits and then get into the actual motion. And Jack Smith, a little nervous. That's why he's filing this stuff. If he had an actual case that was winning, he wouldn't have to dig into all of this nonsense. So here is the exhibit. So this is what he's whining about. Let's get into what he submitted to Judge Cannon. He says, Your Honor, Trump posted this one. Trump said back on May 21st, wow, I just came out of the Biden witch hunt trial in Manhattan, the icebox, and I was shown reports that crooked Joe Biden's DOJ in their illegal and unconstitutional raid of Mar-a-Lago authorized the FBI to use deadly parentheses lethal force. And now we know for sure that Joe Biden is a serious threat to democracy. He's mentally unfit to hold office. 25th Amendment. Get out of here, Joe. That's part one. Now they submitted another exhibit 2. They say, Your Honor, look what Trump has said again. Not only is he saying that they used lethal force to come after me with their illegal and unconstitutional raid, he also submitted this. Trump alert came in, breaking news. Stop the witch hunt. Trump submitted this to an email list, it looks like. Breaking from Trump. Biden's DOJ was authorized to shoot me. True. Yeah, absolutely true. Do you think if the Secret Service said, no, you're not coming in because the president is not allowing you in, this is his property, he has said that we're going to be defending this property because we're not allowing you to come in, do you think it could have escalated? I don't know. Maybe next time someone will stop the FBI from coming onto their residence to take pictures of their wife and kids' bedroom without their authorization. When, in my opinion, the president has the immunity over his actions from when he was in office. So taking those documents, and hasn't been settled by the Supreme Court yet. So the DOJ couldn't say that he did not have that definitively. They could say it's their opinion, but it would have just been their opinion. But as a better framework for our country is to not have administrations going after outgoing administrations. Because if you do that, you're going to incentivize the outgoing administrations to not cooperate with the prior administrations, right? And to shield themselves up. So now you have this real big problem that, of course, Joe Biden just created. But here's what Trump said. Now, it's just been revealed that Biden's DOJ was authorized to use deadly force for their despicable raid in Mar-a-Lago. You know, they're just itching to do the unthinkable. It's true. Joe Biden was locked and loaded, ready to take me out and put my family in danger. All true. They didn't come and knock on the door and say, can we come in and please have permission to come in and just look around? No, they raided. They had guns. They came in with a surprise. They had tactical operations. They were locked and loaded. And if they would have had any resistance at all, do you think they would have just sat there and taken it? No, of course, they would have returned fire. Now, he thinks he can frighten me, intimidate me, and knock me down. But worst of all, they think their thug tactics will cause proud supporters like you to abandon me. But here's the one thing they don't know. We will never surrender. Never. Biden's corrupt regime needs to get the message right here, right now, that our patriotic movement cannot be stopped. So before this day is over, I'm calling on 1 million Trump patriots to make a donation today. Stand with Trump, with you by my side. We will make America great again. So Donald Trump assigned this letter. Stop the witch hunt. Oh man, Jack's going to be so mad about that. We weren't going to shoot shoot you? Huh? So here is Exhibit 3. Trump posted this one, May 23rd. I have gotten to know so many amazing United States Secret Service agents. It has been my honor to have them protecting me and my family since our historic 2016 victory against beautiful Hillary Clinton. Shockingly, however, crooked Joe Biden's Department of Injustice authorized the use of deadly force in their illegal, unconstitutional, and un-American raid of Mar-a-Lago. And that would include against our great Secret Service, who they thought might be in the line of fire. As I told Crooked Joe's DOJ, if they needed anything, all they had to do was ask. In fact, they did. They came, they sat down there. Trump invited them in, popped into the office, said hello. FBI agents, meantime, were looking around at all the cameras. Oh, we're going to subpoena that. Oh, we're going to subpoena that. What's your name? Oh, what's her badge say? Oh, who's this? They were investigating the president, who was extending out of goodwill an invitation, and they exploited that. So why would the next president be so foolish to ever do that again? Now we have a precedent for creating an adversarial relationship for outgoing administrations. Nicely done. They did not have to illegally and unconstitutionally raid my home and rummage through my family's, including Barron's, private quarters. It's sick. End these third world witch hunts and make America great again. Now, all raids make my skin crawl. Anytime anybody's house gets raided from, strangers, police officers and government officials, as though it makes any difference at all to the violation of what's happening to you. But they did it to the president. They took pictures of Melania's bedroom, of Barron's bedroom, and they're floating around on some FBI server somewhere. People are sick. So here's Exhibit 4. Steve Bannon claims the Mar-a-Lago classified document search was, quote, an attempted assassination by Joe Biden and his associates. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. We don't know what they would have liked to have happened. So they're very unhappy about that. So that's Exhibit 4. Great point, Steve Bannon. And the government is so unhappy about those statements. They say, oh no, this is dangerous. Yes, it's true. We did have a use of force policy. Yes, it's true. We would have shot and returned fire if needed. Yes, it's true. We had multiple armed FBI agents in plain clothes, so we couldn't even tell they were FBI agents, who were raiding a presidential compound in armed vehicles and ranging in there. You don't think that there was a better way to handle that? You don't think that maybe that was a little aggressive and the Secret Service would have been well within their rights to start popping back off? Who are these people raiding the president's compound? Didn't happen this time, fortunately. But what about next time? So here's Merrick Garland. Now, he's upset about the rhetoric. He's upset about Trump's response about what he posts on Truth and what he sends in his emails. But Garland is not too concerned with his insane policies that got us here, where he broke 234 years of precedent and raided his opponent.
Solicitation email this morning from the former president of the United States saying that the Justice Department had authorization to kill him during the Mar-a-Lago raid. First, can you give us some clarification on that particular point that he's making and whether or not deadly force is authorized in other interventions, including the search of Mr. Biden's residence and office?
On that one, that allegation is false, and it is extremely dangerous.
Okay.
The document that is being referred to in the allegation is the Justice Department standard policy limiting the use of force. As the FBI advises, it is part of the standard operations plan for searches, and in fact, it was even used in the consensual search of President Biden's home.
Okay, so nice talking points. You put it in the consensual search for Joe Biden, and I'm sure we're going to see those documents. Did they also go into Hunter Biden's bedroom and raid through his stuff too? Did they go into Ashley Biden's room and raid her stuff too, take pictures? Did they go into Dr. Jill's location, take pictures of her medical exam books or something, whatever, her coloring books there? What's going on? So it's the same. Everybody's making much ado about nothing. It's dangerous. Don't you talk about this. Of course, it certainly feels like they would be very happy if something popped off, if something got instigated as a result of their brazenness. Now, the government submitted this to Judge Cannon, and here is what they wrote. They say, Your Honor, we need to modify Trump's conditions of release. The court has set terms. He's free to go and do certain things, say certain things, but we have to change those because of his bad rhetoric. This was submitted by the government, Jack Smith and the Oompa Loompa Jay Bratt out of the Southern District of Florida, West Palm Beach Division. Government writes the following. Your Honor, Judge Cannon, the government moves to modify Trump's conditions of release. We're offended. To make clear that Trump may not make statements that pose a significant and imminent and foreseeable danger to law enforcement agents who are participating in the investigation and the prosecution of this case. What a bunch of weenies. The government has contacted counsel for Trump. They stated that they object to the motion and they object to the timing of conferral on a holiday weekend, which is exactly when they dropped this. on a Friday. The defense attorney's like, what? It's Friday night, weirdos. We're going to the beach, man. We're going to the cabin. Leave us alone. It is their position that the government has not provided an opportunity for a meaningful referral on this gag. The defense does not believe that there is any imminent danger because Trump said a couple things. And they asked it to meet and confer next Monday. However, the government Jack Smith, he's so nervous and panicky, he says, within the last few hours, Trump has continued to issue false statements. He's smearing and endangering the agents who executed the search. Yeah, those two guys who were taking pictures of Melania's bedroom. Trump retruthed the statement on Truth saying lethal force on Trump or anyone at Mar-a-Lago while the FBI and the DOJ plant evidence to frame Trump. Wow, Trump's calling out. Maybe they planted evidence. I don't know. Some confusion about whether the cameras were on, cameras were off. We know that when the defense got a bunch of the surveillance footage, it had already been converted and reformatted into some proprietary format that the defense has problems accessing. Very curious. So maybe they did plant something. Maybe stuff got moved. You're allowed to make that argument as a defendant in America. You're allowed to say every single cop is corrupt. You're a liar, judge is a liar, prosecutor is a liar, your mother's a liar. You can say that if you want. I personally like to leave mom out of it. Unless she's involved, then we're coming. But that's the point. You're allowed to say this. It's part of the natural order of criminal defense. So the government's request is necessary, Your Honor, because several intentionally false and inflammatory statements recently made by Trump that distort the circumstances under which the FBI planned and executed the search warrant. They are such babies. It's like a public relations type of motion. They're saying we did bad things and we're just not true. Those statements create a grossly misleading impression about intentions and conduct of federal law enforcement agents. This is like a whiny complaint. It's honestly pathetic. I can't even believe a prosecutor's writing it. Grossly misleading impression. It's like a whiny Facebook post, falsely suggesting that they were complicit in a plot to assassinate him and expose those agents, some of whom will be witnesses at trial, to the risk of threats, violence, and harassment. These government officials, because Trump said some bad things. The court has an independent obligation to protect the integrity of this judicial proceeding and should take steps, says Jack, whining, to immediately halt this dangerous campaign to smear law enforcement. Now, as Trump is well aware, says Jack, the FBI took extraordinary care to execute the search warrant unobtrusively and without needless confrontation. They scheduled the search of Mar-a-Lago for a time when Trump and his family would be away. Okay, that doesn't mean that they are away. When they were scheduled to be away, would be away, all of them, someone stays behind. And why did you do that when they would be away? Because it would be a confrontational? Are you afraid? Were you worried that maybe somebody would shoot someone and you wanted them not to be there because maybe it would get violent because you have a confrontation between the FBI and the Secret Service? If this is such an unobtrusive and something without any prospect of confrontation, and you did take extraordinary care, why'd you have to wait till everybody was out of the blast zone? They planned to coordinate with Trump's attorney, Secret Service agent, and Mar-a-Lago staff before the warrant, and they even planned for contingencies, which never even came to pass. Like, we didn't have to shoot anyone, about with whom to communicate if Trump were to arrive on the scene. Yeah, what if Trump decides I'm going back home? Change of plans. So they were very nervous that, in fact, maybe he would be there. Also because they're cowards, by the way. They didn't want to look him in the eye. Why wouldn't you raid him when he's there, weenies? He leaves. Trump is gone, and so then you can go rummage through his wife's closet and bedroom. Freaks. At least have the stones to show up when he's there and look him in the eye. Pathetic. As part of this planning, the FBI used a form that contains standard and unobjectionable language setting out the DOJ's use of force policy, which I agree would apply in normal cases. This is not a normal case, which prohibits the use of deadly force except when they have reasonable belief that the force poses imminent danger to someone else. The inclusion of that policy is just routine, and we use it to restrict the use of force, which is so dumb. You kind of have to restrict it. You don't want to enable the use of force. Unless that's your objective. Yes, you always limit it, but you could just say we're not going to use force in this situation to recover documents. That's not going to be necessary when we're going against a duly elected president, breaking years of precedent in order to do it. And they say it's attached to countless warrants across the country. So they're the ones who are changing the dynamic. They have to justify it. Moreover, as Trump is well aware, no force was used or threatened in executing the Mar-a-Lago search warrant. Yeah, it's because they all just let you guys come in. What if they said, no, you're not coming in? This is the president's personal residence, and your administration is unlawful. We are immune against your incursions onto our property. I am immune from any of your process because you're trying to criminalize my presidential acts. You have no authority to do that. Go to the Supreme Court, have them sign off on the warrant, not some magistrate judge called Bruce Reinhardt out of Florida, like he's executing a warrant for crackheads, which they never even did for Hunter. Now, as planned, the FBI executed the search warrant in a professional and cooperative manner, which they're lucky Secret Service and Trump's people were good. Now, at a time when Trump and his family were out of the state, right, because they're cowards, which is why they did it this way, because they didn't want an explosion to go off and Trump to be involved, because they knew it was dangerous. Necessarily. That's what executing a search warrant is. Trump, however, they say, has distorted the standard inclusion of the policy that actually limits the use of deadly force, which it doesn't. That's just fake reversal of the semantics. Does it allow you to shoot somebody or not? Yes, it does. Okay, great. So it authorizes the use of deadly force by mischaracterizing it as a claim that the FBI was authorized to shoot me, which they were. Give me a break, they were. If Trump came out, started popping off at FBI agents, do you think they would have shot him back? Of course they would have. They were authorized to shoot him. They clearly were. Just itching to do the unthinkable, and they would have loved it. Are you kidding? Christopher Wray, Andy McCabe, they would be just having dinner parties with George Conway. So, Your Honor, Trump said that we're locked and loaded and we're ready to take me out and to put my family in danger. They did. Yeah, I don't care if you have a badge or a gun or some law enforcement authorization. You taking pictures without legal cause, there's no reason for them to be in Melania's bedroom or Barron's bedroom. That's beyond the scope of your investigatory powers. You've got no cause for that. So that just makes you a pervert. And it's exploiting this privacy and the sanctity of your wife and kids. So yeah, as a father, as a husband, yeah, I'd consider that danger, clearly. So these deceptive, says Jackie, these are deceptive. These are inflammatory. They're trying to expose the law enforcement professionals who are involved in this case to unjustified and unacceptable risks. They invite the sort of threats and harassments that have occurred in other proceedings against Trump that have been targeted by his invective. So do you see where this is going? Strategically, from a legal standpoint, what Jack Smith is trying to do is create a wedge. So he knows Jack Smith has precedent to get gag orders. This is in his favor in terms of legal jurisprudence. He's got other prior cases that act as precedent for gags. Chutkan gagged, Engeron gagged. We just had Mercan gagged. Now he's going to go to Cannon and say, Cannon, you have to gag him. I mean, every other judge has too. And she's going to say, no, you're just being a little whiny little bee, Jack. Your FBI agents are scared because they raided the president's house. What did they think was going to happen? What, you think there was going to be no blowback in America? It's why we don't do this. Now, those risks have the potential to undermine the integrity of the proceedings, which have no integrity at all, and jeopardize the safety of law enforcement. And nobody's asking for threats against law enforcement. By the way, if you make a threat against law enforcement, that's illegal. They'll arrest you immediately. They don't even play around with that crap at all. So if there is anything that is jeopardizing the safety of law enforcement and it's a legitimate true threat and somebody makes a bad voicemail, go investigate it. You are the FBI after all. The court has previously underscored its independent obligation, and the court has power to impose different release conditions. Now, a condition of release that stops him from making statements that pose significant, imminent, and foreseeable danger by pointing out their policy that they wrote in their document and having an interpretation of that, that's his free speech, Jack. Such a prohibition will minimize the prejudice that Trump is causing and stop this inflammatory messaging from impacting potential jurors. Sounds like a whiny Facebook post. You've read those posts. You're like, just throw it out. Why are you complaining? Just throw it out. Go get a new one. Stop complaining about that thing. Just, okay. Or just grow up, all right? This is part of becoming an adult. Just relax. So here's Jack. He continues. I don't know, he might have had a 16-year-old daughter help him with this. Let's see. He says, you know, as explained more in other filings, we applied for a search warrant and we went and got a magistrate judge in a district court granted the application. Didn't go SCOTUS. Didn't bring up the fact that the president has a lot of explanations and justifications to retain the documents via the Presidential Records Act and many other issues of immunity that have yet to be litigated. They made it sound like Trump had absolutely illegal documents and the judge just signed off on it, rubber stamped it. I think it was even electronic. Was it an electronic voicemail? Like, it wasn't even in person. He just like faxed it over like a standard DUI. The judge, they said, found probable cause for these crimes. And in preparation, we created a bunch of documents. And the government says we plan to execute this as unobtrusively as possible. And we coordinated. And we chose a date, August 8th, when we thought that it was the off season. We thought Trump wouldn't even be in Florida. And so we prepared. And we even contacted Trump's lawyers. Then we would coordinate with the Secret Service if necessary. And we had those instructions as well. But they say in the section of operations form addressing contingencies, the FBI noted that if contrary to their expectations that Trump were to arrive, FBI management would be prepared to engage with points of contacts with the Secret Service per existing liaison relationships. So if Trump comes in, they're planning for the contingency. If Trump and Secret Service arrive and Trump says, nope, feds are not raiding my wife's bedroom. Nope, feds are not raiding my son's bedroom. Get out of here. I'm the president. I have immunity for my presidential acts. Then what would they do? They would go back to the Secret Service and they would try to work it out with their existing liaison relationships because they don't have authority. So they'd have to work it out with Secret Service. The Secret Service would have to stand down. It'd be like in the movies. This is my jurisdiction. Oh yeah? Yeah. So it could have gone differently. Trump wasn't there. They stood down essentially. The raid took place. Now, FBI policies requires that special agents must be armed when on official business. Really? You guys also have a policy for raiding presidents? Or did you just write it? Because this feels like you just wrote it. So maybe when you write a new policy, like raiding your political opponents, maybe you should reconsider what the official policy is for that unique circumstance. FBI explained to us, it's just standard policy. The operations here are standard issue weapons, and we have business casual unmarked polos or collared shirts, which just really demeans the whole thing. We're leading the polo revolution, but FBI is not allowed to be a part of it. The operations form also included a section, very standard, they say, policy statement on deadly force. It says, law enforcement may use deadly force, in this case, permission, only when necessary with a limiting factor, when the officer has reasonable belief of imminent danger or death or serious physical injury to the officer or to another person. And so we don't really know what that standard is because they can kind of do whatever they want. So we don't really know what their standards are for the federal government. They kind of just allow everybody to do whatever. The policy statement further provides that officers should try to seek voluntary compliance before you shoot them. That's nice. Now, the FBI executed the search warrant on August 8th, and prior to the FBI's entry onto the property, they coordinated with local Secret Service. They also contacted Trump's attorney before beginning the search, and neither Trump or the family were there. At no point were any weapons drawn. They could have been. That's the point. That's why you had weapons, in case you needed to draw them. Now, after the grand jury issued the indictment, the government produced all these forms. There was nothing unusual about the forms, and we submitted them. They say the same thing all over the place. We use it all around the country every day, which is also gross when they raid everybody else's residence. You know, this happens to be the president. We have a glistening visual of how that went down. But this happens hundreds of times every day. Raids, rummaging through people's private items. On February 22nd, Trump filed under motion to suppress the evidence, document under seal. He said, and we've read this now, that the government allowed the use of deadly force. Now, although Trump included the warrant in operations, the motion misquoted the operations form. It omitted the crucial word only before when necessary, without any ellipsis reflecting the omission. The motion also left out language explaining that necessary force is only necessary when the officer has a reasonable belief that the subject of such force poses an imminent danger. So they say, notwithstanding this mischaracterization, the motion did not seek suppression based on the policy. They say on May 21st, Trump also filed another redacted motion. And then after that, the next day, he publicly claimed on True Social, Trump posted, he said, I was shown reports of Crooked Joe's DOJ. They were authorized to use lethal, deadly force. They were authorized to shoot me. And predictably, as Trump intended, Jack Smith says, others have amplified those statements like us here. We've talked about it. Falsely characterizing the inclusion of the entirely standard language, saying that they would love to assassinate Trump, because they would. So here's what Jack says. Judge Cannon, help me. The court should modify Trump's condition of release to assure the safety of people and community. You have an independent obligation. Oh gosh. He says, professional law enforcement officers and agents in this country put their lives on the lines every day, carrying out their duties to enforce the law. Every day, lives on the line. These FBI agents, all 50 of you, raiding J6ers while they're asleep at their house. Yes, I know. It's risky. He could have a gun, Rob. He could shoot us. Yeah, I know. When executing court-authorized warrants, those professionals face many uncertainties and potentially grave risks. There could have been someone in Barron's bedroom. You know, Barron's bedroom Barron might have been in there with a bazooka or, you know, some pipe bombs strapped to his chest. You don't know. Melania could have been in there with the machete hiding behind the closet. Melania, I think, she could cause some damage for sure. She has that look sometimes. You're like, oh, someone's going to die. To minimize the threat of harm to law enforcement professionals and civilians, agents plan carefully for all contingencies. They also follow standard protocols, including the prohibition on using deadly force. You're not allowed to use deadly force except when necessary, like at Mar-a-Lago when you're raiding a president. The FBI followed these entirely standard and appropriate practices here. They say, but Trump, however, has grossly distorted these standard practices by mischaracterizing them as a plan to kill him. Trump is saying they're going to just take us out. Our family and our Secret Service agents. They say those deceptive and inflammatory assertions irresponsibly put a target on the backs of the FBI agents who were involved in this case. Now, as Trump well knows, indeed, Trump himself recognizes the power of his words and their effect on his audience. This is wild. Trump has said this. He says, my supporters listen to me like no one else. And his documented pattern of speech and its demonstrated real-time, real-world consequences have posed significant threats when he makes inflammatory claims. Trump's risks have justified restriction, here it is, on his other extrajudicial speech, right? The other judges did it, canon. Indeed, an armed attack on an FBI office in Cincinnati, Ohio. Oh boy, we haven't seen this yet. An armed attack on an FBI office. So historically, they've been saying that there's been mean statements. Fanny's been called a racist. Engeron's been called a pervert. His clerk, GF Greenfield, is under attack. Okay? They're just social media posts. They're just bad language. Now we have an armed attack on an FBI office by one of Trump's supporters. Maybe the FBI should get some more powers and be able to censor and focus on Trump supporters some more, just like in 2020. In the wake of his statements inflaming supporters about the speech of Mar-a-Lago. Now, under the Bail Reform Act, a judicial officer shall issue something to stop the disruption. Here, Trump has conditions of release, and so you're allowed to modify those conditions of release. And so the court should exercise its authority to impose a condition that Trump may not make public statements that pose a significant, imminent, or foreseeable danger to law enforcement. Don't say bad things about our corrupt feds. Whether a particular statement meets that test must be determined by the context. But that condition would prohibit him from deceptively claiming that the agents wanted to kill him. As such, you should make that clear. Your Honor, the modification would also comport with the First Amendment, says Jack. Yeah, he has a constitutional right to speak, but he doesn't have an unlimited right to speak. And so these measures are appropriate. We could put a restriction on him saying that he should avoid all contact with witnesses, and he's already agreed to other release conditions. So courts overseeing these cases can do the same thing here. Trump cannot evade you keeping control of your courtroom by dressing up his inflammatory messages with political speech. Just because he's running for office doesn't mean he gets to say whatever he wants. This is endangering, and there are significant harms created by Trump's speech. And so the law enforcement agents participating in this case, says Jack, they conducted the search in an appropriate and professional manner, including taking pictures of Barron and Melania's bedrooms. Subject to the DOJ's standard use of force policy, Trump's repeated mischaracterization, saying that we attempted to kill him and kill his family, has endangered law enforcement officers. They're probably in hiding right now, all these FBI agents. Hey man, just checking in on you. Are you still alive? Barely, man. I'm barely alive. We're gonna make it through it. These poor FBI agents involved in the investigation and the prosecution in this case and threaten the integrity of these proceedings. And so a restriction prohibiting future statements does not restrict legitimate speech. And so Trump's conditions should be modified. Oh yeah, we knew who this was coming from. Jay Bratt, the Florida Oompa Loompa, waddling around there in the classified documents case. And it reads just like a whiny little Facebook post. Hey, my officers are so scared because Trump's calling them assassins. Well, why did they raid his house? So that is what they filed. They are panicked. They're trying to, I think, create a wedge, trying to show that Judge Cannon is not like the others. And they brought out this guy, Andy McCabe. And let me share this with you. And he's going to come FBI-splain to us about why this is necessary. It's just a regular old form. And then they brought on Conway, and they brought him out too. Stop making a big deal of this, okay? They were not trying to kill Trump.
And they say professional law enforcement officers and agents in this country put their lives on the line every day and carrying out their duties to enforce the law. And they're saying that when executing court-authorized warrants, those professionals face many uncertainties and potentially grave risks. And they're saying to minimize that, agents here are just planning for all contingencies. That is part of their job. And that is why you could read about that deadly use of force policy in this search warrant.
That's absolutely right, Caitlin. So important to understand the context. This is an operation operations plan,
FBI splaining
which is
right here.
required for the execution of every search warrant and arrest warrant that FBI agents engage in. This is part of FBI policy. The operations plan includes tons of information, primarily for the other agents who are going to take part in that operation. It tells them where to go, when to be there, who's going to be driving which vehicles, all sorts of things like that. This particular section is required. It is part of the form. Like, it's not even something that agents have to type in on every plan because it's baked into the form. And that is a recitation of the DOJ's authorization to use lethal force. The reason it's there is to make sure that every agent who goes out on this operation understands the limits of using lethal force,
but that you can. So you don't just get to automatically shoot someone. You have to really need to shoot someone. And they authorize that at Trump's residence. So this is Andy McCabe. That's about as much as we can listen to from him. But he, of course, was involved in the Hillary Clinton email cover-up. He was investigating her and weird things happened. Then he was involved in the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, creating that fictional story when he was there at the FBI. He was deputy director under James Comey. Now he's gone. Now he's a columnist, or he's a commentator over with Caitlin Collins, fed-splaining to us how it all works and how dumb we are for not trusting the FBI to raid everyone in America that they disagree with. So Jack Smith, absolutely freaking out. You can tell because his motion sounds like a high school child who's upset with something that happened. And actually, that's kind of an insult to high school kids. This came from Jay Bratt, who is a lot less sophisticated than them. So we got more coming out on this. Of course, Trump's team's going to respond. The Judge Cannon, Eileen Cannon, will be ruling on this. We'll see if there's a hearing on this. And we'll say our prayers for all the FBI agents who are now in hiding after having ransacked Melania's bedroom. I'm sure they're very nervous. Hopefully, they'll recognize the errors of their ways, repent, and then recover in time. We'll be here continuing to cover this, my friends. We've got a great segment coming up next. If you like this one, wait until we talk about what's going on in New York with those jury instructions. We will see you right there.